Welcome to Retail Tech Revolution by CBTS. Today we'll be talking about geospatial intelligence. I'm the producer, Lance Hart. Today I'm joined by Justin Rice and John Lloyd. Justin, let's jump right in.
Yeah, thanks, Lance. And John, thanks for joining today. We're going to talk about geospatial intelligence, but really as it relates to enhancing customer analytics.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we work with retailers, we understand that we can provide platforms that help build a foundation to do things like location analytics and geospatial intelligence. So I want to dig into that a little bit today, and let's define what that means. Let's define what you can do with that data, and let's then kind of wrap that up with some of the security and technology that's necessary to ensure that consumer data is protected.
Yep.
So to start, I want to kind of talk about location-based customer segmentation. So I think in retail, I've seen a couple of things, one of which is geofencing and geo-targeting by product, right? You see that at Target is a good example, but also like segmentation by location. So analyzing customer data based off of geographic information. So with that said, I guess in your words, what do you think of when you think of geospatial intelligence?
So for me, geospatial intelligence is understanding the motions of a customer. And that doesn't necessarily just mean in your store. It enables at-bats, right? We think about, if I get 100 at-bats, I'm more likely to get a hit than if I have 10 at-bats, right? Yep. And what you're able to do is start to understand and engage and create more at-bats with your customer because or potential customer, because with geospatial, you understand their movements, you understand their time, you understand inventory. We'll talk a little bit about how you can even understand their inventory.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, like understanding that footfall traffic, the journey that a customer takes within a store to make their buying decision is really important. And then be able to visualize that in an analytical engine is really important because it helps you with things like product placement. It understands peak visiting hours. It understands where people are likely to spend the most amount of time based off the footprint of the store. And you can build your inventory, you can build loyalty, you can build all these strategies around footfall traffic.
Well, and you can create footfall traffic, right? It's not just in the store. So I'll give you this example, specifically about grocery retail right now. Where I live, there are 4 of the same retail grocery chain within, call it 5 miles of my house, before I get to the first big box that also super center that also happens to have groceries, right? So for something that I go grocery shopping every week, right? I'm going to that grocery chain. That's geo analytics of understanding zip codes and understanding, what the makeup is, how big families are, propensity to buy, what they buy, those sorts of things. In all of, northeast, southwest of me, in every direction I go, I will hit my local grocery chain before I will hit my super center that also has groceries. So they've created that journey. Now they can start to identify what it's like once I get inside the store where I spend my time.
Yeah. So you're really saying because, within whatever, neighborhood that you live in, you have your neighborhood grocer and you all have a certain demographic profile, they can customize that store layout with geospatial intelligence based off of the buy-in persona of your neighborhood or whatever. So what makes that work? How does that happen technologically?
There's a lot that goes into it, and it gets better and better as it goes, right?
Yeah.
The old way was loyalty programs. The problem with the loyalty program is what I'm buying from you. You don't know what I'm buying from someone else. Also, we used to send out print flyers, right? Like you get your newspaper, and it was the same flyer across the board, and the same specials, the same sales, the same brands. RFID has been a huge, we're talking specifically to grocery here, right? I know there's other retail in the retail vertical that maybe it's not the same, but understanding, you think about like the Google car that drives down the street.
Yep.
We literally can drive a car down the street, hit a button, and pull out of the household, that you have Frito-Lay's chips in there and the date that it was bought. And so RFID tagging is huge as far as understanding the demographic. Grocery, obviously you're going to have more grocery stores than you would, a clothing store because you don't buy clothes every single week, right? Yeah. But RFID is a huge piece of technology to understand what's outside of your store, what's outside of your environment.
That makes a lot of sense. And then moving into the store, I think a lot about my e-commerce shopping experience, where as a retailer, I know how long John spends at any given site looking at a product, whether that turns into a transaction or not. We have lacked a lot of that in the in-store shopping experience, where with a lot of the location analytics engines that we see out there today, that a lot of times are coupled with RFID, Wi-Fi, 5G, LTE as the connectivity portion of that. Cameras can now track how long John looks at that product in the store, whether he buys it or not.
Yep.
Which is important, I guess, for the, we've talked about previously about the unified commerce experience. I think understanding that having an analytic engine that helps you with not only your e-commerce, but your in-person shopping experience unified is a really big deal.
And the time in there, right? So there's a lot of stores will use loss leaders and put them in the back of the store, right? I got to walk past everything else to get to diapers. You're not making money on the diapers, but you're getting me to walk past everything else to get there. But what is that journey? Like, do I walk straight there? Do I tend to slow down halfway there? Because all of that is critical. Do I start paying attention as soon as I walk in the store, or no? You can tell that my engagement increases as I get towards the back of the store, and so you want to charge more. Or no, you don't go to the back and then forward. You go to the back and you loop, right? Like, what is your traffic pattern?
Yeah,
inside of the store becomes widely important of how you market your loss leaders.
Well, and I'm going to touch on two things there. So the first thing would be that gives you the ability to do things like real-time targeting. So if I walk into a store and I know that my loss leader is in the back, and I know that there are 5 key products that the customer is going to pass between entering the store to the back of the store, I can now start bringing in real-time targeting for the things that they're going to walk by.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about what is the technology that makes that happen? Give me some examples. Is that certain Wi-Fi technologies? What's making that work?
So some of it's smart cameras, right? It's beaconing and sensor built into triangulation, built into your access points. So wireless access points, not necessarily some just by themselves, but really there's Bluetooth beaconing inside of them that helps triangulate. It's the mobile device that's in my pocket that I walk in with, and being able to recognize that IMEI has been in the store before to correlate some of that. There's typically a software layer that gets added on and ingests data, ingest it from access points, ingest it from Bluetooth beacons, ingest it from smart cameras. There's the other place it comes from. You, the consumer, right?
Yeah.
I want to go green and protect the earth, so I don't want a printed receipt. So how do you get your receipt? You put in your email address, right? So now I've correlated your entire shopping journey, and I've got your email address that I can now create in my database to say, it's been X amount of months since this person's been here, or, again, I think we're focusing too much on grocery in the beginning. Think about a bookstore. This is my new author, right? I can tell that you buy this author or this genre. Everybody gets the email from a retailer, the everyday email.
Yep.
But ultimately, people feel, and you go unsubscribe, and it's like, why are you unsubscribing, right? Like, well, you sent me too much of this. And I'd be curious how many people go, okay, still send it to me once a week, right? You unsubscribe.
Yeah.
But now, if I'm not getting those emails, except when they're really relevant to me, I'm only getting them once every 3 weeks, and it's because my favorite author has a new book out. That's very interesting. Or because the genre, you read thrillers, there's a great new thriller out that everyone's talking about. That sort of thing is wildly important. So that's where that application layer comes in to stitch together all of that information I've collected because of technology to really do what with it? Action it.
I've seen, and I'll use Cisco Meraki as an example. And Cisco Meraki having it built into their technology that I can do heat mapping in a particular location. I can load up a floor plan, I can understand heat maps, but I think to your point, the software layer that sits on top of that is what makes it actionable. I do see a trend coming where, let's use product placement, for example, whether that's a bookstore or a grocery or whatever, I do see with product placement, I think AI is going to come into play here with heat mapping, making recommendations based off of how long visitors spend in a certain area, tying that back to your CRM or inventory data to make recommendations of changing your product placement is a good example.
Well, and there's a lot of, retail is such a broad term, right? To me, like healthcare is retail, right? Your doctor, your physician is retail, right? It doesn't need to be a hospital. Why you choose, this health partner versus that health partner, And by the way, how often do you change, right? That's a retail vertical that's kind of like almost for life. You land you typically tend to stay. So I think about how we use this data. And I use doctors as one example. Take auto repair shops as another. I want the job done right, and I want it done like availability is sometimes important. If I don't feel good, I want to get to a doctor quickly, right? If I need to get my oil changed, I don't want to go spend all day, right? So using this data and publishing it as a marketing or sales tool to say our current wait time, right? If you come to urgent care, right? I've actually seen these are billboards. It will be urgent care and it's on the highway, and it live publishes what their wait times are.
Yeah.
Well, that's coming off of some of this geospatial recognition and things like that. Or to go, Google does this. If you Google a place, it'll say like typically busy right now, right? But that's really analyzing people with Google apps on their phone and how often they tend to go. I'm talking about if you knew that the grocery store right now, the average wait time in a checkout line was under a minute, right? Or if I went to place A to get my oil changed, the quick pit stop places, and you could sit there for 30 minutes before you even get your car in. But if I knew the one a mile down the road, I could get in right away. That's a really actionable thing. And so it's really a two-way street. It's not just collecting the data to better be able to target and engage your marketing with me, but as a selling point to understand. There's a hospital that uses this that we work with in Chicago, and they use it for parking lot because they're in the urban core and they are concerned that people will be afraid. I don't want to drive downtown, not be able to park anywhere. It's going to be a pain.
Right.
And so they literally advertise on their website and will tell you how many parking spaces are available in their lot that's right inside of their building.
And that is such the power of geospatial intelligence rather than relying on something static like a POS system to say, okay, I know the average user takes 45 minutes or whatever. I'm going to have a static display based off of what I believe the trends to be. Geospatial intelligence helps you narrow that into a lot greater accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, the amount that it influences, you see a lot of this in stadiums of the wait line to go to a concession stand. You typically, if you're in a public venue, you walk to the top of your section, you look left, you look right, lines, and you go back to your seat.
Yeah.
Right. But to be able to go, oh, I'm in section 208. If I had walked down to 210, I could have got a hot dog and a soda and there was no line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would happily do that. But what I'm not going to do is aimlessly walk around the concourse to see if I can find a shorter line. So again, that sort of, some of it's wayfinding, some of it's geospatial, but those sorts of things are critical as far as, getting me to spend money where maybe I wouldn't have.
Yeah. I think about, I want to talk about user privacy a little bit because I think about as a consumer, I'm okay with some of this, but I start to get a little worried about if I'm walking in and you recognize me as a user through your facial recognition, you're giving me a personalized buying journey based off of where you believe I'm going to walk throughout your store. And then as a category, you understand product placement, all these things. Should we be worried about user privacy? Like where do we draw the line here?
There's a saying that says, if you're getting something for free, you are the product.
Yeah.
Right? Like we had them. You sign up for the loyalty programs and the rewards programs, and the benefit is you get, a discount here, and it does put on retailers, right? There is an expectation.
Yep.
For me, I'm less worried that you have, my face of what time I walk into the grocery store and then I buy, Kellogg's over General Mills. You have my credit card, and you've always had my credit card. Like that's that security of how do you encrypt your data? How do you protect your network? How do you keep bad actors out? How do you build, the controls? I guess to me, retailers have always had customer sensitive data, and they have PCI compliance and things like that they have to meet. Understanding what I buy, I've been giving you that. I give you that data if I buy it on Amazon. I give you that data when I put in my customer loyalty number. Having that data, that doesn't necessarily concern me as much. There's some other things you can do. So for some retailers, they'll do progressive profiling. If you're think about an airport where Wi-Fi becomes critical. I'm going to be here for 2-3 hours. There's a lot of interference. I may not get great cell signal. And so are you traveling for business or pleasure? Ask me that question. Okay. Now the next time it recognizes the MAC address on my phone and says, oh, they've been here before. Welcome back. I know you were traveling last time for business. What's your age range, right? So it's not asking me personal data and it's not collecting me, but it is now starting to correlate that I fit into this bucket. And the more that I go to that airport, it knows, it might ask me my zip code. So it knows I travel for business. I am this age bracket. I live in this zip code, and it can start to still create targeted advertising, targeted marketing. I get a lot more of, and they share that data I get from like Lyft or Uber that says, because I have the Delta app, and the Delta app says you've got a flight coming up soon in the next 3 days, and I'll get a note. Hey, 10% off. Why don't you schedule an Uber to take you to the airport so you don't have to worry about parking, right? Those are the sorts of those interactions already happen and already exist.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you. I'm okay with it. I believe the intent is transparent, and it does offer, it's an exchange, right? I'm okay with being the product if my experience is such that it benefits me in some way. And I think that transparency is key. I agree with you where I do believe retailers, and us to a degree, the retailers we support, we have a responsibility to protect the data, to make sure everything's secure, make sure you continually update your environment. So I think it is married. I'm okay with the transparency. I'm okay with giving the data, but I'm putting a lot of trust in you. I'm making sure you're protecting me.
I tell people this all the time. If you have an issue with that collection, get rid of your smartphone, get off of social media.
Yeah.
I have no problem that I've Googled something and then I start seeing advertising, whether for that brand or similar competitors, things like that. What I do have an issue with is, after this conversation, our Facebook is going to be, riddled with, that's the stuff of, as long as I know you're collecting, if I'm going on my way to come to your store, you've already been recording me on security cameras forever anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's more about the transparency that you mentioned.
Yep.
You have a responsibility to keep it safe, but you've already been keeping my credit card data, hopefully safe. That's far more important to me than my buying persona. And you're not eavesdropping. You're not listening in on private conversations like some of the social media apps. So to me, some people, they'll be concerned about it. If you are, get rid of your smartphone.
Hey, get rid of it. Yeah. Give me a great, if all of this information helps provide me a better experience, you know what? I'm okay with it. But I do want to talk a little bit about taking it back to the technology that supports it. I want to make sure this is clear. What we are seeing is, you said RFID.
Yep.
We are seeing Wi-Fi.
Yep.
We are seeing 5G LTE.
Yep.
Private wireless.
Private.
And then we are seeing software layers that sit on top of this to make all of this engine run. I think that's the key thing for retailers who want to take advantage of this technology. It's multifaceted.
It is. Data is only as useful as how you can collect it, but how do you produce it, right?
Yep.
How do you consume or digest it? The application piece, like that to me is where you can differentiate as a retailer. So you've collected all of this data, and that's great for you internally. You can help do targeted marketing. That's great. But for me, the consumer, I talked about, average wait times. Augmented reality is another one.
Guys, I just want to figure out how to get out of an IKEA store once I'm in the IKEA store.
So IKEA, they were like the OG augmented reality. They just use light bulbs.
Yeah, there's
but
light
they
bulbs.
put the arrows on the floor.
Yeah, but you still get lost. I'm like, wait, I just followed an arrow, and now I'm in Home Goods again, and there's the plants. How do I get out of here? Like, literally, that's my life.
To me, IKEA is borderline kidnapping.
It is.
Like, I just want to go in and get one thing, and they're like, nope, you will walk through this whole store, spend 3 hours, and it's like, I just wanted to.
They do some good stuff, though.
The third time you walk by that plant, you're going to buy it.
Do you remember Pokemon Go? Like when that was the craze forever?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Well, what if instead of, I don't know the name, but instead of seeing Charizard, you saw an arrow.
I don't know the names, but I know that.
Well, that's the one. Everyone knows Charizard, right? And then I run out after that. But instead of seeing that, you see an arrow because you've opened the app in the store and told it what you were looking for. Instead of saying aisle 5, it in the app literally is giving you arrows on the floor to follow to that product. Wild engagement process. That's really cool and really fun. We did it at the Super Bowl. They did this, and it was a huge hit. And the arrows, it was like, there was an augmented reality sponsor, which was Pepsi, and at any point you could open it and it would show you arrows on how to get to the Pepsi booth, right? Like,
yeah.
It's those sorts of things. That's the application layer. How do you build a really cool engagement model with your customer on the data that you're collecting. I know you can advertise more targeted to them, and that's really important. And all the analytics those are all great. But imagine if when you walked into the store and it was like, hey, we've actioned all of this data and said, we've got this new product that we think you'd like. Are you interested? And if you say yes, now it walks you to it with augmented reality. It's really cool.
You've actually hit on something that's really interesting, because I would say 3-4 years ago, when we really started seeing a lot more of location-based analytics and real-time targeting, it was the benefit to the retailer at the time was I can partner with an advertiser. This is ad revenue that I can attribute to my business, and that's how I am monetizing this thing. Now it's okay. Well, real-time targeting, sure, that's important. But if I can give a better experience, that's my monetization strategy.
Yeah. I mean, and this isn't in geospatial, but like think about the food industry. A lot of quote unquote fast food, or fast casual, however you want, they want you to get out, right? They don't want you spending a ton of time there. That's why sometimes you won't see guest Wi-Fi in there. For me, the consumer, what I don't want to do, I would rather order and then go sit down at my table. The wait time could be the same, but I'd rather do that, especially if I'm there with my kids. They're, not going to stand still. So the days of like the carousel line, I love the 6 screens that we can all go order. And I get the kitchen's going to make it in the same order in which it's like received. Yeah. So my wait time may be the same, but that wait time isn't standing there.
It's at your fingertips.
It's sitting
instead.
at the table. Yeah. I'm, playing a game on my phone. The kids have my phone, obviously. They're, that's a different experience. And then the same is true when I'm done eating. I want to leave. Right. And so the kiosks to be able to pay at your table, those sorts of experience. So now I'm done. I want to leave. I don't need to wait for a server to come back and then take my card and then go. And by the way, what do they say? Do you want a receipt? What's your email address? And we'll send it to you. Right. And now they're starting to collect an action on that. So I think the idea of using technology to increase the customer experience is critical. And it's not just about what happens when you walk into my store so I can sell you more stuff. It's about how can I make your experience better when you walk into my establishment.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think, we in this series, there's topics like unifying commerce, right? I think all of these things tie together. We've talked, talking about network insecurity, talking about unifying commerce, talking about geospatial analytics. They all tie together.
Well, and think about this. If you're a fast food chain, what if I, told you that the customer, on average, your customer comes in and spends 22 minutes in the store? But what if I told you the customers that spend more than 35 minutes in the store are more likely to come back twice a week as opposed to once a week? Does that change how you try to keep people in your store longer or in your establishment longer? That's the sort of data when we talk about analytics that you can really start to correlate. Every retail chain keeps metrics of revenue and stack ranks their stores. What we want to do is why? Because I guarantee it's not a fluke. It's always the top stores. Yep. Some of that is just geolocation. How many people live near that store, foot traffic. I mean, there are real tried and true traditional things that drive that.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, there are way more micro reasons underneath that. And we want to use technology, and we help our retail customers use technology to unlock why are those stores the top.
Yep.
And so you can start to apply those lessons learned to your bottom.
Yeah, unlocking, I think that's what the parting thought I have here is we help retailers unlock that art of the possible.
Yep.
Right. So we'll sit with you. Let's figure out a way to unlock that, because the industry is moving fast, and retail is such a competitive industry that you always have to be thinking 10 steps ahead.
Yep, absolutely. And by the way, what I love about it is from an IT standpoint, these things that we're doing increase revenue, right? So you go to the business, I don't care if you're in IT or you're in marketing or loss prevention, like wherever you're at in retail, and you go to the business and you say, we need money for this project, but here's the ROI. If I told you the ROI of making an investment in new wireless access points across the store would increase sales by 20% because we're able to now do this, there's not a retailer I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Especially if you said, well, we don't have the capital budget right now. We can help you. We can operationalize that.
Yep.
That's the fun part for me is it's not just a cool thing, which it is, but you really get to see that ROI.
There's a real
and it's pretty
return.
instant, right? It's not like, in 10 years it'll pay for itself. No, it's increasing immediately when you can understand the why.
That's right. Well, John, as always, thank you so much for your time today. We've had another good session of Retail Tech Revolution. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Yeah, appreciate it.